Charlie Tangaroa and the Creature from the Sea by T.K. Roxburgh. Illustrations by Phoebe Morris. Chapter 1. I'm curious. What would you do if you found a mermaid washed up at the beach? Would you call the police? The TV station? Would you poke it in the eye with a stick? That was Robbie's idea, not mine. Right, let me set the scene for you. After all, it's not every week that a Māori boy from the remote east coast gets to save his town from a family of warring Māori gods. On the first proper day of our school holiday, I'd drag Robbie along with me for beach patrol, one of the 6 tasks in my Sea Cadet's service book that I had to complete by the end of summer. Not the saving foolish swimmers kind of beach patrol, but the one that still involved idiots doing dumb things. Today's dumbness was brought to Tolaga Bay from a couple of out-of-towners. Robbie and I were able to track their movements through the sand dunes to the beach by following discarded bottles, chip packets, and someone's underpants. "Gross," Robbie said, using his stick to flick it into one of the old feed sacks which we carried. "Grosser to leave it there," I said, pulling a plastic bag caught in the sand sedge. "We can be good locals and return their lost property." Robbie smirked. This was the only part of our patrol that he enjoyed, seeing me enact revenge on litterbugs like those guys. By the time we found them, his sack was half filled with their droppings. They were sitting on the beach, their surfboards rammed up right into the sand like faceless sentinels. "Hey," I called out, "you guys left something back there." I grinned with my "we're all mates" face and continued to walk towards them. "My brother and I have brought it back for you." They stood looking tall, muscly and mean. "Get lost, kid," the one with the dreadlocks snarled. "Nah," I said. Robbie hovered just behind me and I could hear his quick breathing. I think he was afraid they'd beat us up, but I wasn't. Well, maybe a bit, but we were committed now. "Didn't your mother teach you it's rude to visit someone else's place and leave behind your mess?" The shave-headed one took one step towards me. "Scram, before we feed you to the sharks." I stood my ground, because they needed more convincing. "No sharks around these waters, mate, or dolphins or whales either. Killed because of the likes of you." I lifted the plastic bag at him. He puffed out his chest and rolled his arms and shoulders back like a gorilla. "Watch it, loser," he said. Then he gave me a violent shove so that I stepped back but lost my footing, falling hard onto the sand, flat on my back, staring up at his ugly face. "Oh no!" Robbie rushed forward, blocking their view of me. "Charlie," he said, his voice high and worried, but he was grinning as he gave my left leg a hard tug. Then he jumped up. "Look what you've done!" he cried, face serious, eyes wide, pointing to me. I groaned loudly, but was pleased to see the shocked faces of the older boys. Baldy looked like he was going to scarp it. "Look at his leg, man. Look at his leg." "No," Dreadlocks said, pointing to my left foot, which was now protruding about 15 centimetres more from the bottom of my jeans than my right foot. "I'm calling the cops," Robbie shouted and pulled out his phone. "You're in so much trouble now." I sat up and grabbed my thigh. My leg. "Oh, my leg," I cried. "Let's get out of here," Baldy said, pulling his surfboard out of the sand. "You can't go," Robbie said. "You need to help my brother." "Oh," I moaned dramatically. But as expected, they continued to pick up their gear. You can run, but you can't hide, I said, exaggerating my breathing. The police will be able to track you by fingerprinting your rubbish. That thought seemed to register in their heads, and they stopped for a moment, looked at each other, down at me, and then at Robbie. Dreadlocks was obviously the more intelligent one. Get the bag, he barked at Baldy, and don't leave any of your stuff here. Baldy snatched the sack Robbie held out for him, and as an afterthought grabbed the plastic bag out of my hand and rammed it into the sack. While I continued to hold my thigh and give the leg a bit of a sickening jiggle, the two guys scrambled around before hightailing it off the beach, through the dunes and out of sight. They've gone, Robbie said a moment later, pocketing his phone. Good one, I said, rolling up the left pant of my jeans. Take the foot, would you? Robbie crouched down and twisted the left foot off my prosthetic leg to the right while I pulled. There was a satisfying click sound, and my legs were now the same length. Give us a hand, I said. Robbie grabbed my arms. Don't you mean leg? Old joke, still made him laugh. But I was grinning too. Did you see their faces? Classic. I looked around where they'd been. Nothing left, exactly as it should be. We fist bumped, and I picked up my empty sack. The locals couldn't be fooled by our two-man act, but this was the third time we'd managed to freak out the tourists. A dude's got to use any secret weapons he can to have a bit of fun, even if it means making litterbug tourists believe they've caused more injury to a 13-year-old. I wonder if I can get bonus credits for making people pick up their mess, I said. You should, Robbie said, swinging the stick so that the tip kept striking the sand, sending clumps to the left and right, most of them landing on me. Cut it out, I growled, or I'll report you for being a nuisance. Bet I won't have to do rubbish duty when I join the Army Cadets, Robbie said. He had pulled out a ribbon of nylon from the huge clump of seaweed. The rotting carcass of the fish was at the end of it. Gross, he said, tossing it back onto the mound. Sea cadets suck. He looked at his phone. We've already done our time. Can we go now? I shook the last of the sand from my hair and hoisted the sack over my shoulder. We have to finish the entire length of the beach, otherwise it doesn't count. Let's just run and clean up, he said. Robbie, my stump's a bit sore already. He pulled a face. Harden up. Magic words, those words. Because I hate that. And if he calls me a sissy, ooh. All right, I said, shoving the sack at him. You carry this, and then it's fair. I'll go nice and slow for you, he said, grinning. And I'll do the dunes while you go along the water where the sand is firmer. Jogging down to the water was reasonably straightforward. It was the coming back that started the wobbles. I heard a click in the joist and tried to counterbalance my leg swing, but that made it worse, and there was a popping sound as I fell forward, leaving the leg behind, and was sent in diving formation, head first, in a pile of seaweed, complete with rotting fish. Robbie roared with laughter and came over to me. He laughed seeing me make an idiot of myself. I looked around for my prosthetic, which was oddly standing straight up, balanced on the stand as if refusing to join me while I became a human cannonball. When Robbie saw the leg, he pointed, still laughing. Good job, Charlie. Shut it, I growled, punching him in the thigh. Get it, would you? He thumped me back hard, but sniggering, he stomped over to my leg and brought it back, dumping it on my lap. Thanks, I mumbled, fiddled with the straps and locked it back in. Is it damaged? Don't think so. I stood and looked and took a few tentative steps. Man, you hit hard, he said, still rubbing his thigh. So do you. Must have looked pretty funny, though, one-legged torpedo. I bet you I was going faster once I ditched the leg. The leg ditched you, idiot, he said. You should have seen the look on your face, man. And he pulled a face that looked like the tickle on top of our meeting house. Not as funny as your face. Here, he said, handing me a crumpled photo. You ditched this as well. Thanks, I said, taking it back from him and returning it to my back pocket. I didn't need to check it because I knew every square millimetre of it. A coloured photo of Mum and my father. Him, red hair like me, bare-chested and lanky, leaning up against a dinghy, her looking up at his face, into his face, mouth open, laughing. She is beautiful, and though she hasn't lost her looks, the photo is the only place I've seen her look this happy. It's the sole picture I have of him, because there are no memories. He was gone before I was born. No one has been able to tell me where his relatives are, and I stopped asking about him a few years back because it only made Mum sad or angry or both. Let's say we've done for the day, I said. Come on, slow coach. Eat my dust, Robbie called, sprinting away. Yeah, it annoyed me not being able to keep up with him on the land. But hey, in water, he couldn't touch me. I reminded myself of that as I limped across the sand. We kept along the high tide watermark, but swept down towards the water every now and then. About 2/3 of the way along the beach, we found her. What's that? Robbie asked, pointing to a fleshy lump dumped amongst the rocks. Looks like a body. That is the first chapter.